Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this is your Red Pill News. What a night. What a state of the union. President Donald Trump delivered yet again. Only this time, he delivered for every person in America. Last year, he was speaking to us. This year, he spoke to everyone, and he made it impossible for the Democrats to look good. He perfectly played all of the things that he's done. He even had the Democrats chanting USA, USA. I couldn't believe it. And then other times they were looking at each other trying to figure out if they were supposed to clap or not, because it was stuff they really needed to be clapping about, because he has really done a lot for the United States and for everyone living here. It's not just MAGA people. It's not just Republicans. It's not just fans of Trump or people on the Trump train. It is everyone. President Donald Trump has brought our country back from the brink of disaster, and he is taking us to places we haven't seen in a long time. So I thought it only fitting that today's show would be a State of the Union wrap-up. Now, if you missed my program last night, you can go find that on my channel. There is a pre-show for the State of the Union. I actually streamed the State of the Union itself, and then I did a wrap-up show with Space Shot 76 and the folks at Patriot News afterwards on Space Shot's channel. And I believe that you can also find that video on the Patriot News channel. So to begin, one of the things that I was really crazy about, I couldn't believe it, was that the Democrats were clapping. Except the only problem is that they were cheering more for themselves than they did for the war heroes, the HCOST survivors, child cancer survivors, jobs, and a guy who landed on the moon. Okay? It was incredible. Incredible that they clapped at all, but even more incredible that these cult members, all dressed in white, were mostly clapping for each other. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever seen a show called The Leftovers on HBO, but it's about this cult, and they all wear white, just like the Democrats did last night. Congressional Democrats cheered harder at the State of the Union address for themselves getting into Congress than they did for war heroes, criminal justice reform, child cancer survivors, preventing sex trafficking, low unemployment, job growth, putting drug cartels out of business, and a guy who landed on the moon. They also clapped more for themselves than they did for record black unemployment. They clapped more for themselves than they did for putting drug cartels out of business. Kamala Harris is directly affected by this revenue stream, so she was not happy. They also clapped more for themselves than they did for Buzz Aldrin, putting a man on the moon, which I thought could have been perhaps a wink at JFK as well. I loved that. Incredible. Incredible. These people are narcissists. The fact that they are unable to cheer for all of these wonderful accomplishments, these things that are good for the American people. They're not good for Republicans. They're not good for Democrats. They're not good for independents. They're good for everyone. And they're good for these people right here. You know what? I would hazard a guess and say if it wasn't for if it wasn't for Donald Trump, that these women right here would not have made it into Congress. So hopefully this is going to have some blowback on them, and the American people saw that. And I really think that's what it was about. President Trump did such an excellent job of preaching the message to everyone and showing the incredible work that he's done, that he made them look like fools when they didn't clap for these things. And we'll see some more stuff about that here in a few minutes. Right here. Another article from the Gateway Pundit in Poll Stunners. Both CBS and CNN polls show that 76% of viewers approve of President Trump's State of the Union speech. CBS had 72% approve of his immigration ideas. Oh my God. CBS News and CNN released instant polls taken immediately after President Trump's State of the Union address, with both polls finding 76% of those who watched approved of the speech. The CBS poll, 72% approved of Trump's immigration proposals, while the CNN poll showed 76% approval with 59% very positive. Wow. They are losing it, guys. Donald Trump grabbed a hold of that message, and he delivered it right to us last night. It was an incredible speech. CBS Evening News anchor Jeff Glor reported on the poll results. Let's see what Jeff has to say.
CBS News instant poll here following the president's State of the Union. 76% of speech watchers said they approved of what they heard. 72% said they approved of the president's ideas for immigration.
Uh-oh, somebody's in trouble, and it's the mainstream media. All right, so pro-Trump CNN commentator Steve Cortez posted CNN's results of 76% approval and 59% very positive. 76. Oh my gosh. And next, this was one of my favorite moments of the evening. Socialist crackpot Bernie Sanders scowls at President Trump as he proclaims America will never be a socialist country. And there's video. Oh, God, look at his face. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere but the State of the Union. President Trump delivered his annual State of the Union address from the House chamber Tuesday night. The president called for unity. He celebrated economic prosperity and touted record low unemployment due to his business-friendly policies and deregulation. President Trump took a shot at the radical left-wing Democrats openly embracing socialism. We are alarmed by the new calls to adopt socialism in our country, Trump said to audible boos in the House chamber. America was founded on liberty and independence and not government coercion, domination, and control. We are born free and we will stay free, Trump said to thunderous applause from the Republicans who broke out in chants of USA, USA. It was a great moment. The camera panned in on socialist crackpot Bernie Sanders, who was scowling after the president rejected socialism. President Trump received a standing ovation after he proudly proclaimed, "Tonight we renew our resolve that America will never be a socialist country." Yeah. Okay, let's take a listen.
Here in the United States, we are alarmed by the new calls to adopt socialism in our country. America was founded on liberty and independence and not government coercion, domination, and control. We are born free and we will stay free. USA, USA.
Oh, God. Oh, it's so uncomfortable.
Tonight, we renew our resolve that America will never be a socialist country.
You gotta notice even Chucky Schumer stood up for that one. Pelosi couldn't bring herself to do it, though. Oh, and now we go to the Democrats' reply. WTH, Stacey Abrams opens the Democrats' State of the Union response by wishing everyone a happy Lunar New Year. Stacey Abrams opened the Democrat Party response to President Trump's State of the Union address by wishing everyone a happy Lunar New Year. Good evening, my fellow Americans, and happy Lunar New Year. And it went downhill from there. And they wonder how they lost the working class in middle America.
The Democratic gubernatorial candidate. Let's listen in.
Stacey Abrams, and I am honored to join the conversation about the state of our union. Growing up, my family went back and forth between lower middle class and working class. Yet even when they came home weary and bone-tired, my parents found a way to show us all who we could be. My librarian mother taught us to love learning. My father, a shipyard worker, put in overtime and extra shifts, and they made sure we volunteered to help others.
She volunteered at the polling centers where they told her how to count extra votes. Then she went on to BITCH about losing her election. Give it a rest, Stacey.
Let's be clear. Voter suppression is real. From making it harder to register and stay on the rolls, to moving and closing polling places, to rejecting lawful ballots, we can no longer ignore these threats to democracy. While I acknowledge the results of the 2018 election here in Georgia, I did not, and we cannot, accept efforts to undermine our right to vote. That's why I started a nonpartisan organization called Fair Fight to advocate for voting rights. This is the next battle for our democracy, one where all eligible citizens can have their say about the vision we want for our country.
Whether they are alive or not. Stacey Abrams is still sore about the fact that they couldn't pull enough dead voters together to get her elected in Georgia. Well, guess what, Stacey? You lost. So you did what every self-respecting politician would do. You started a nonprofit. Excellent work. Excellent work. So now you can soak up all of that grant money, get that cash together, and then you can open up additional polling places in Democrat states and in Democrat neighborhoods where it's unlikely that Democrats will be able to make it, or in high Republican voting districts, just like they did in Arizona. And once again from the Gateway Pundit, a startling moment from the State of the Union. Watch your butt. Jackie Rosen appears to warn fellow Dem Kristen Sinema about standing ovation for the president at the State of the Union. A video clip from President Trump's State of the Union address Tuesday night shows Senator Jackie Rosen, Democrat of Nevada, appearing to give a profane warning to Senator Kirsten Sinema for giving Trump a standing ovation during his speech as he spoke about the passage of right-to-try legislation last year. Sinema was already out of step, having worn a pink dress rather than the white protest message attire worn by Rosen on Sinema's right, here she is on our left, with her arm in a sling. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat California, and dozens of other Democrat women at Trump's speech to a joint session of Congress. In the clip, Sinema is seen standing and applauding Trump while all of her fellow Democrats near her sit stone-faced and not applauding. Rosen slowly stands up right next to Sinema and with a sideways glance appears to mutter, "Watch your butt," at Sinema, then sternly looks away. Sinema acknowledges Rosen with a defiant nod and stays standing. Sinema and Rosen are both freshman senators, having been elected last November. The line Sinema gave a standing ovation to Trump was, "And to give critically ill patients access to life-saving cures, we passed, very importantly, right to try." The video clip was first posted Tuesday night by Trump 454545. Let's go ahead and take a listen. Now, you can very clearly see her saying, "watch your," and a word that I'm not going to repeat only because I don't want this video to be censored. I've tried to make it about 4 or 5 times today, so I'm really trying to get a version out that YouTube will accept. So Kristen Sinema, yeah, she stood up and clapped for the president, and her colleagues did not like it. Here is another view right here. And there it is. You can see her saying it. That woman's got some cojones on her. Now, confirmation from observers claiming lip-reading experience. That's what she said. Lip reader here. Definitely said it. This person says, "Robert, spot on. Having a daughter involved in the deaf community, lip reading is an acute skill of many. It would be great to have Fox News enlist an expert lip reader to give color to the many off-color comments during the State of the Union. Good for Sinema to applaud for America." And I would have to agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. So, Kristen Sinema falls out of the ranks with her Democrat colleagues, and they are not happy with her. And in an excellent catch from my friend Methods on Twitter. Check it out, guys. Look what Gina Haspel, the director of the Clowns in America, was wearing at the State of the Union last night. I only saw her for a brief second, so this is great. The view from C-SPAN caught that she was wearing a shirt covered in white hats. All right? If that is not a message to us, then I don't know what is. You know what else was said at the State of the Union last night? President Trump said boom. He also talked about D-Day. And the number 17 in relation to the USS Cole. Now, if the director of the Clowns in America is wearing a shirt covered in white hats, tell me what that means anything other than the fact that white hats are in control. News from an article in the Epoch Times. This is a follow-up to the plane crash story I reported on a couple days ago. Police say that pilot in fatal California crash had fake records. This is going to be big. The man piloting a small plane that broke apart over a Southern California neighborhood had false credentials, identifying him as a retired Chicago police officer, authorities said February 5th. Antonio Pastini was killed when the twin-engine plane broke up shortly after takeoff and fell in pieces in Yorba Linda, igniting a fire in a home where 4 people died on Sunday. The cause of the crash has not yet been determined. Pastini, 75, was initially identified as a retired officer, but Chicago police said there were no records of him working for the department. The credentials found at the crash site included false retirement papers and a police badge bearing the same number as a badge reported lost in 1978. Chicago police spokesman Anthony Guglielmi said in an email to the Associated Press. Orange County Sheriff's spokeswoman Carrie Braun said the credentials were not legitimate, but the pilot was indeed Pastini. The victims inside the home have yet to be publicly identified. Pastini's daughter, Julia Ackley, said her father's birth name was Jordan Isaacson, but she didn't say why he changed it. She did not address the police credentials. I'd prefer not to comment and let the investigators do their job, Ackley told KABC-TV. My father is exactly who he said he was. She said he was a restaurant owner and an experienced pilot who flew regularly from his home in Nevada to visit family in California. Aviation safety experts cautioned against drawing early conclusions about the cause of the crash. Now this is Dave Elfver right here talking about the plane crash that hit that neighborhood. At this stage, you don't make assumptions. You let the evidence lead you where it leads you, said John Cox, a former commercial pilot and a veteran crash investigator who is head of the consulting firm Safety Operating Systems. National Transportation Safety Board investigators have been collecting parts of the aircraft, the plane's records, and information about Pastini, who was described as a commercial pilot with an instrument flight rating. Preliminary information showed the plane took off around 1:35 p.m. Sunday from Fullerton Municipal Airport, made a left turn, and climbed to an altitude of 7,800 feet before starting to descend over Yorba Linda. This is the home that was caught on fire. Weather was intermittently rainy across Southern California during the weekend, but specific conditions encountered by the flight were not immediately known. Observers said the plane initially appeared intact when it fell through a cloud ceiling at an altitude of about 2,000 to 3,000 feet, investigator Maja Smith said. Witnesses say they saw the plane coming out of a cloud at a very high speed before parts of the airplane, such as tail and subsequently wings, started to break off, Smith said. The Cessna 414A has a good reputation, said Cox, who said he has flown similar Cessnas since the 1970s. In-flight breakups are uncommon, and causes can range from metal fatigue to instrument failure and forces induced by the pilot, he said. He said the breakup may have begun earlier than was apparent to the witnesses. Small pieces may have come off that are leading up to the cataclysmic breakup that people see. You need to make sure that the airplane was fully intact when they first see it, he said. As an investigator, you have to be careful about that. Losing control of an airplane can also lead to a breakup, Cox said. One of the first things that might fail in that situation, he said, is a horizontal stabilizer, the structures that look like small wings on the tail. Once one of them comes off, the loads then on the airplane will exceed what it can withstand, and other pieces will fail due to structural overload, Cox said. Photos of the wreck showing the outer portions of the wings apparently snapped off are consistent with the type of forces wings are subjected to with the loss of one or more horizontal stabilizers, and when the airplane loses aerodynamic balance, he said. Video showing puffs of smoke erupting in the sky as the plane fell were consistent with an in-flight breakup rather than an in-flight fire aboard the plane, Cox said. Witnesses described the plane as sounding like a missile or a racing motorcycle. Cox said that could be the result of the engines no longer being under control. So very interesting. The gentleman flying the plane had falsified records stating that he was a Chicago police officer. That leads us to ask additional questions. Why was he working under an assumed identity? His daughter already admitted that he had a name prior to the name that he was using when he passed away. But this is not where it ends. Let's take a look at more. Here in an article from ABC 7 Eyewitness News, mysterious Chicago police angle deepens in deadly Yorba Linda plane crash. And as authorities try to figure out how a small plane fell from the sky and 5 people ended up dead in Southern California on Super Bowl Sunday, there is a deepening mystery involving the pilot and the Chicago police. Police in Yorba Linda, Los Angeles originally said the pilot, Tony Pastini, was a retired Chicago police officer after finding a CPD badge and some paperwork in the cockpit of his crashed plane. On Tuesday, they walked that back, saying those were fake items and he wasn't a Chicago cop. Now, the ABC 7 I-Team first reported questions about the police angle Monday when CPD officials told us they had no record of Pastini. In California Tuesday afternoon, his daughter spoke with sister station KABC and was asked about the apparently fake Chicago police credentials. She declined the opportunity to explain. I prefer not to comment and let investigators do their job, Julia Ackley said. My father is exactly who he said he was. We do know Pastini was a restaurant owner, First at a Chicago-style Italian restaurant in Nevada, and then a sushi restaurant in Carson City. On social media platforms and in media interviews, Paine said that he had been a Chicago cop for 21 years before retiring and moving west to open the restaurant. He then worked as a food safety instructor, and his name is still listed on a Nevada state website. But in Chicago, the police pension database doesn't list him by Paine or the birth name provided by his daughter, Jordan Isaacson. As the I-Team first reported Monday, Chicago police officials have no record of an officer by either name. Federal authorities said he did have a legitimate pilot's license. "I've been in his planes since I was a baby," said Ackley. "We were just in his plane last month." Pastini's plane seemed to explode and fall from the sky on Sunday, straight into a Yorba Linda home where a Super Bowl party was getting underway. 2 men and 2 women inside the home were killed. Chicago police told the I-Team that they are not investigating the case as a possible fraud because the potential suspect is already dead, and federal crash investigators don't believe the CPD angle had anything to do with what happened in Los Angeles. The I-Team was also told by a Chicago police official that the numbered CPD badge found in Pastini's crashed plane had been reported lost in 1978. How it ended up in Pastini's hands and his plane on Sunday are not known. Occasionally, CPD stars can be found for sale even on eBay, along with badges and ID cards from other law enforcement agencies. So the mystery deepens. Is that normal for retired police officers to carry their badges around with them or fly with them when they're going on a plane trip, or to bring their paperwork stating that they were a Chicago Police Department officer? I wouldn't think that it would be normal, but if anybody's out there that's a retired LEO and would like to comment on this, I would love to hear about it. And in our final story of the day, from the Hill, prosecutor leaves Mueller team amid reports of investigation's progress. Good news. A prosecutor working with Robert Mueller's office of the Special Counsel has exited the team and returned to the Justice Department. News reports indicate that the investigation could be nearing its conclusion. Scott Meisler left the Special Counsel probe in December, a spokesman for the Special Counsel said in a statement, but remains active on cases related to the Mueller probe to which he was assigned before his December departure. Could those be indictments for people not associated with the Mueller probe itself, but crimes that they came across while investigating? As we remember, our favorite Anon said the whole purpose of the Mueller investigation was to gather evidence and not on Donald Trump. Reports of Meisler's departure come days after Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker told reporters that the probe was close to being completed. "I hope that we can get the report from Director Mueller as soon as possible," he said at the end of January. The Special Counsel's investigation has re-entered headlines in recent weeks with the arrest and indictment of Roger Stone, a former advisor and longtime confidant of President Trump, on charges of witness tampering and obstruction. Stone has entered a plea of not guilty and vowed to fight the Special Counsel's efforts to prosecute him or the president. The idea that a full 29-member SWAT team in tactical gear with assault weapons would surround my house, 17 vehicles in my front yard, including 2 armored vehicles, a helicopter overhead, and that I would open the door looking down the barrel of assault weapons, that I would be frog-marched out front barefooted, handcuffed, when they simply could have contacted me, Stone said of his arrest last month. Very interesting. Well, we're going to have to wait and see what Scott Meisler is up to at the DOJ. Hopefully, it's doing some good work. I want to thank everyone for joining me. This has been Red Pill 78. I am the corruption detector, and this was your Red Pill News. Good luck, everyone, and God bless.